The sky above Hestia 12 darkened long before dawn. Captain Elias Trent felt the shift in the air before the colony's sensors confirmed it. For weeks the frontier world had been unusually quiet, too quiet for a place sitting on the fringe of Voraal territory. Now the dread he had been pushing aside finally solidified into certainty. Trouble was coming. He stood on the training field overlooking rows of militia volunteers. Most were miners, farmers, or technicians who had never fired a rifle before joining his drills. They listened to his instructions with determination, even if fear shadowed their eyes. These people were his responsibility, and he took that burden personally. Elias scanned the horizon one more time. The early light revealed a landscape of dusty ridges and scraggly pines. The world was peaceful, almost serene, but the tension inside him refused to settle. "Captain," Sergeant Mira called, jogging toward him. "Orbital feed just updated. Something big just dropped out of FTL." His jaw tightened. "How many ships?" She swallowed. "One. But it's a dreadnought." The word pulled a murmur through the nearby volunteers. A Voraal dreadnought wasn't a warship, it was a continent-crushing declaration. The Empire didn't send such vessels to negotiate. They used them to demonstrate authority. Elias dismissed the militia with a sharp wave and walked with Mira toward the command outpost. Dust rose with every step, drifting across abandoned mining equipment. In the past year, production had slowed because of rumors, whispers of Imperial patrols circling nearby systems, probing colonial defenses. Inside the outpost, flickering screens displayed grainy images. The dreadnought hovered like a metallic storm cloud, its black hull reflecting fractured shafts of sunlight. Its silhouette dwarfed anything the colony owned. "Any transmissions?" Elias asked. Lieutenant Farrow tapped a console. "One. It's not friendly." The speakers crackled, then a deep voice filled the room. "People of Hestia 12, this is Commander Zaros Vek of the Voraal Empire. You will submit to immediate inspection. Resistance is unnecessary and amusing. Your primitive defenses present no challenge." The transmission ended with a burst of static. Mira muttered, "Arrogant bastard. They're testing us," Elias said. "Or showing off." A tremor ran through the building as the dreadnought released its troop carriers. Dropships streaked toward the colony, leaving glowing trails across the sky. Their descent resembled burning spears cutting through the atmosphere. Elias turned away from the screen. "Mobilize the militia. Evacuate civilians to the lower caverns. Seal everything we can." Mira nodded and sprinted out. Minutes later, the first dropships touched down beyond the perimeter. Voraal warriors stepped out in rigid rows, each wearing glistening exoskeleton armor etched with crimson insignias. Their movements were synchronized, almost ceremonial. Elias watched from behind a sandbag barrier. He'd seen footage of these troops during his service with the Terran Union Marines, but seeing them in person was different. Their armor shifted with a faint hum, absorbing sunlight and radiating energy. Even a single warrior could overpower an entire militia squad if underestimated. The Voraal commander marched ahead of the formation. He was taller than the others, his armor plated with obsidian panels. His voice boomed through an amplifier. "Humans of Hestia 12, submit for pacification. Do not delay. Your weapons are obsolete. Your resistance will be brief." A few militia fighters bristled, gripping their rifles tighter, but Elias raised his hand. "Hold." Zaros scanned the human lines with bored amusement. "You bring hunting tools to a battlefield. How quaint. Lay them down." Elias stepped forward. "This colony is under Terran charter. Any aggressive action violates." The commander fired a plasma bolt into the ground near his feet, scorching the dirt. "Your charter is irrelevant. The Empire decides what exists." Militia members instinctively opened fire, more out of panic than strategy. Bullets ricocheted off the Voraal armor with harmless pings. The aliens didn't even flinch. They advanced with slow, arrogant strides. Elias cursed under his breath. "Fall back! Regroup at the secondary line!" The militia scattered toward the inner ridge. Plasma fire tore through their makeshift barriers, vaporizing metal. Elias dragged 2 wounded fighters behind cover, shouting for medics. The battle lasted only minutes. The Voraal didn't rush, they didn't need to. Their measured pace reinforced the same message: humans were beneath them. When the fighting subsided, Elias met with Mira and Pharaoh inside a partially collapsed bunker. The air smelled of burnt soil and melted steel. "We can't hold them off with rifles," Mira said, tearing open a bandage with shaky hands. "Our best shots barely dented their armor." "They're not armored against kinetic saturation," Elias replied, thinking aloud. "Their shields are tuned to energy attacks. They rely on psychological dominance." "Meaning?" Pharaoh asked. "Meaning they don't expect an overwhelming storm of physical rounds. They think we're too primitive to produce anything capable of that." Mira frowned. "Even if that's true, what do we have that can output enough kinetic fire to matter?" Before Elias could answer, a faint rumble shook loose dust from the ceiling. He checked the portable scanner still clipped to his belt. During the withdrawal, he had noticed something odd on its display, deep below the mountain ridge, a large metallic structure. Pharaoh leaned over his shoulder. "What is that? Mining equipment?" "No," Elias said. "Look at the alloy signature. That's pre-Union steel. Old Earth manufacture." "From before the Exodus?" Mira asked. "Possibly." Pharaoh blinked. "That would make it at least, 400 years old?" Elias stood abruptly. "Grab gear. We're going to check it out." They navigated narrow mountain paths until the ruins of an old outpost came into view. Half buried beneath rock slides, it looked like a relic forgotten by time. Elias brushed away dirt from a faded emblem, U.S. Armory, 1870. Myra's eyes widened. "This must have been transported aboard an early generation colonial ship." Pharaoh found the manual release panel. Doors jammed. Elias wedged a crowbar into the seam. After several forceful pulls, the door screeched open, revealing a corridor coated in dust. A stale, metallic smell seeped out. Inside, rows of wooden crates lined the walls. Lamps flickered uncertainly as the squad moved deeper. Elias cracked open a crate's lid and stared in disbelief. Rifles with polished brass fittings. Revolvers packed in oilcloth. Bayonets wrapped in linen. But at the center of the chamber stood something far more imposing, a tripod-mounted weapon sealed beneath a protective canvas. Elias pulled the cover free. A Gatling gun. Pristine. Preserved. Beautiful. Pharaoh whispered. "That thing belongs in a museum." Mira stepped closer, running her fingers along the crank. "Can it even fire?" Elias inspected the mechanism. "If we oil the gears and load the drums, it absolutely can." Mira looked toward the distant sounds of Voraal patrols. "You think this antique can turn the tide?" Elias exhaled slowly, a fierce resolve settling over him. "They mocked our history. Let's give them a reason to fear it." Outside, thunder rolled across the valley, not from the weather, but from advancing Voraal war columns. Their armor glinted like predatory insects marching to a feast. Elias loaded the first drum into the Gatling. "We're not done yet." The mountain echoed with the distant, mechanical click of ancient steed-ons stretched across Hestia 12 like a thin blade of gold, cutting through the lingering smoke of yesterday's defeat. Captain Elias Trent stood on the ridge where they had positioned the Gatling gun, the ancient machine gleaming beneath the rising sun. He had spent the entire night checking gears, feeding drums, and adjusting the tripod until every bolt sat where it needed to be. It wasn't perfect, but it was ready. The mountain winds carried distant metallic clatters, Voraal troops regrouping. Their precision unsettled even seasoned soldiers. Elias tightened his grip on the Gatling's handles as Mira climbed the slope toward him, her boots crunching across scattered stone. "We've sighted 3 formations moving this way," she reported. "Maybe more behind them. They're advancing slow, like they have all the time in the galaxy." "They think we're broken," Elias said. "And are we?" He turned to her. "Not today." Below the ridge, militia units took cover behind natural outcroppings. They crouched in silence, exchanging nervous glances as the Voraal marched into view, rows of armored bodies moving with rigid confidence. No hesitation, no sense of urgency. They advanced like predators stepping into a pen of helpless livestock. The troopers spread out with deliberate arrogance. Their armor shimmered, adjusting to ambient light. A commander opened a channel, his voice echoing across the valley. "Humans, lay down your toys. Your resistance is an inconvenience." Mira whispered, "They have no idea what's waiting." Elias braced his stance. "Open the feed." The comm clicked to life, and he spoke clearly. "You wanted a demonstration? Step closer." The alien commander paused. "Your humor is noted. We will rasp it from your bones." Elias didn't respond. He placed one hand on the crank, the other on the grip, and glanced at Mira. "Once I start, don't stop feeding me drums." "Understood." The Voraal continued their slow advance until they reached the marked range Elias had measured by hand hours earlier. The moment their boots crossed the line, he spoke gently, almost reverently. "Here we go." He turned the crank. The ridge exploded with sudden thunder. The Gatling gun roared to life, spitting a barrage of brass casings that clattered against stone in a gleaming shower. A ripping, relentless growl rolled across the valley. The weapon's barrels rotated with mechanical fury, and within seconds the air filled with a storm of metal. At first, the Voraal didn't react. Their shields shimmered, expecting energy fire. But they weren't prepared for thousands of kinetic strikes per minute. Bullets punched into the weak points between plates. Shields flickered, destabilizing faster than their systems could compensate. One trooper staggered. Another dropped to his knees. A third collapsed entirely as his armor fractured under the torrent. The alien commander shouted something in their native language, a harsh, grinding tone of disbelief. "Impossible. Their relic cannot breach." Another volley cut through his words. Mira swapped drums with practiced speed. "Keep going. They're breaking." Elias kept the crank turning, his arms burning from the strain. The Gatling's rhythm became a heartbeat, each rotation pushing the invaders further back. The ground below turned chaotic. Lines dissolved. Troopers scrambled for cover they didn't have. The militia stared in shock. Then Pharaoh yelled, "Move while they're scattered." Flank left. Colonists surged forward, firing in coordinated bursts. Their courage returned, fed by the sight of armored giants falling to a weapon centuries older than the Empire itself. A plasma bolt tore past the ridge, scorching the rock near Elias. He ducked instinctively while Mira cursed, loading another drum. "They're redirecting fire," she warned. "Let them try." Elias angled the Gatling down the slope and swept the valley. The weapon tore through debris, armor, and soil alike. Voraal war cries turned into panicked shrieks. Their formations collapsed completely. The Empire hadn't anticipated anything like this. Their arrogance blinded them. But Zaros Vek was not a commander who tolerated surprises. A thunderous roar shook the valley as a new dropship descended behind the retreating troops. Its hulking frame bristled with reinforced plating. The ramp slammed down, and elite heavy infantry marched out, bulkier, faster, and far more aggressive. Their armor glowed deep crimson, powered by high-density shield generators. Myra's voice tightened. "Those are juggernauts. Keep feeding it," Elias said. He directed the Gatling's aim toward the new threat. The moment bullets struck their armor, sparks erupted instead of fractures. The juggernauts staggered but didn't fall. Elias grit his teeth. "Come on." He increased the rotation speed. The barrels spun faster, the roar deepening. Smoke curled from the mechanism. Brass casings piled around his feet. Finally, one juggernaut faltered, then buckled as a seam in its armor tore open. The others hesitated. That hesitation cost them. A second fell. A third retreated behind a boulder. The Gatling's barrels glowed faintly now, pushing their limit. Mira touched his shoulder. "Elias, we're overheating." "I know." He continued firing until the last possible second before forcing himself to pull back. The weapon coughed and spun to a stop, smoke streaming from its vents. Silence returned briefly, broken only by distant screams and the crackle of burning equipment. Pharaoh arrived breathless. They're falling back. I've never seen them run. They're not running, Elias said. They're regrouping. He looked across the valley. The defeated troops retreated in disarray, but they weren't finished. The dreadnought still hung above like a silent judge. Mira exhaled shakily. We bought time. That's something. It won't last. A thunderous pulse rippled across the valley floor. Dust rose as deep tremors shook the ridge. Birds scattered from the trees. The militia froze. Pharaoh whispered, "What is that?" Elias stared at the far end of the valley where something enormous pushed through the smoke and debris, metal limbs as thick as stone pillars, armor plates layered like interlocking shields, a glowing core pulsing within its chest. A Titan-class exoconstruct. 20 feet tall. Designed to break fortresses. Mira stepped back. We can't stop that. Elias inhaled slowly, then looked at the Gatling. Ancient steel. Human-made. Built in a time when wars were decided by grit, not circuitry. We'll try, he said. The Titan's steps made the earth quake. Plasma cannons hummed with lethal power. Elias placed his hand on the Gatling's smoking frame. History's not done yet. The weapon clicked as he locked another drum into place. The Titan roared. And Elias squared his stance, refusing to retreat. The battle was far from over. Awakening. The Titan's footsteps hammered across the valley like falling slabs of metal. Each stride shook loose dust from the ridge. Captain Elias Trent tightened his grip on the Gatling gun's handles, forcing himself to breathe slowly. The machine beside him trembled from its earlier assault, its barrels scorched and gears still radiating heat. It was barely holding together, but so was he. Mira crouched beside a crate of ammunition. She looked from the approaching Titan to Elias. "Tell me you have a plan." "Not a good one," he said. "But it's all we've got." The Titan's massive silhouette grew clearer through the haze. Its armor gleamed with shifting plates, each segment inscribed with Voraal markings. Twin plasma cannons mounted on its arms glowed with rising energy. A distorted voice boomed from within the construct. "Human defender. Surrender. Your relic cannot harm a Titan." Elias steadied his stance. "We'll see." The machine unleashed its opening barrage. Twin lances of plasma tore through the ridge, exploding in bursts of blue light. Stone shattered. A wave of heat swept over Elias, forcing him to shield his face. Mira dragged a crate back as molten fragments scattered across the ground. Pharaoh shouted from the lower slope. "Captain? We've rigged charges along the left side. If you can lure it." "No," Elias replied. "We can't count on it stepping exactly where we want. We hit it now." The Titan continued its advance, each footfall cracking the earth like thunder. Elias spun the Gatling's barrels with a sharp twist. The weapon coughed once, then roared back to life, firing a storm of rounds directly at the construct. Bullets hammered into its chest and joints, sending sparks cascading like shattered glass. Though the Titan didn't falter, its forward stride slowed. Its shield generators pulsed harder, struggling to absorb the rapid impacts. From inside the armor, the Voraal pilot growled. "Insignificant." Elias ignored him. He adjusted the weapon's angle, targeting the Titan's left knee, the largest exposed joint. The Gatling howled, its barrels glowing red as they spit out another relentless barrage. Rounds chipped away plating, exposing dark alloy beneath. Mira fed another drum into the mechanism. "Keep hitting the same point. Don't change targets." "I see it," Elias barked back. The Titan raised its right arm and fired again. Plasma erupted in a wide arc, slicing across the ridge. Mira threw herself flat as heat scorched the rock only inches above her head. Elias felt the shockwave rattle his teeth. The next drum clicked into place. Elias resumed firing. Each rotation vibrated through his arms, his shoulders burning with the effort. He forced through the strain. The Gatling's barrels screamed under the temperature, but he kept turning the crank. Finally, the Titan's knee joint cracked. A sharp metallic snap echoed across the valley. The giant staggered, planting one hand into the hillside to steady itself. Dirt cascaded down from its impact. Myra's eyes widened. "You're doing it! It's losing balance!" But the Titan retaliated with a brutal charge, launching forward despite its damaged leg. The ground shook violently as it barreled toward the ridge. Elias braced, but a second blast knocked him backward. The Gatling skidded several inches, its tripod digging deep grooves into the dirt. "Captain?" Pharaoh called from below. "It's coming straight for you." Elias scrambled to right the Gatling. Mira pulled at one side, trying to realign the legs. The Titan closed the distance. Its massive shadow loomed over them, plasma cannons powering for the killing shot. Elias planted his boots, shoved the Gatling back into position, and shouted, "Mira, ammo!" She slapped a drum into the port. He cranked hard. The barrels turned, slower at first, then faster as the weapon's rhythm returned. The barrage tore into the Titan's chest plate. Armor buckled, exposing glowing conduits beneath. The Titan raised an arm. "Human, stop!" Elias yelled over the roar. "Make me!" He shifted the aim to the exposed conduits. Bullets tore into the glowing lines. The Titan spasmed. A chain of sparks erupted from its core. Its plasma cannons flickered erratically, then discharged in uncontrolled bursts. One blast struck the ground beside the construct, sending it falling to one knee. Pharaoh shouted from the valley floor, "Now! Miners, pull the lines!" A team of miners yanked on ropes attached earlier to a cluster of support beams hammered into the slope. The wooden beams snapped free, releasing a cascade of boulders they had prepared in desperation. The avalanche struck the Titan's back, forcing it forward. Elias cranked again, pouring the final drum into the construct's exposed core. A bright flash detonated outward. The Titan let out a metallic groan and collapsed face first into the ridge, shaking the entire mountain. A plume of dust rose around its fallen frame. Silence followed, heavy, stunned, profound. Mira slumped beside the Gatling. "We killed it." "Not yet," Elias said softly. He aimed at the construct's chest one last time and fired a short burst. The core dimmed fully. Only then did he lower the smoking barrels. The militia below erupted in cheers. Some dropped to their knees. Others embraced one another. For the first time that day, hope replaced fear. But the battle wasn't finished. The dreadnought above shifted position, shadow falling across the valley. Its comm system opened with a harsh buzz. Commander Zaros Veka's voice thundered, tinged with fury. "Human insect! You destroy my Titan? Then watch your world burn." Dropships launched from the dreadnought, angling toward the ridge. Elias wiped grime from his brow. "Mira, cool the Gatling. Pharaoh, get the militia ready. They'll try to retake the valley." "What about you?" Mira asked. "I'm not letting them land." When the first dropship descended, its hatch opening for assault troops, Elias fired the Gatling upward. The ancient weapon, pushed beyond all reasonable limits, spat a final chain of rounds that tore through the dropship's engines. Flames erupted. The craft spiraled and slammed into the valley floor. Zaros's voice cracked with disbelief. You cannot!" Elias fired at the next dropship, clipping its wing. It veered off course and crashed behind a ridge. The Voraal commander lost control of his composure. "How is this possible? That weapon is obsolete!" Elias steadied the Gatling, smoke rising around him like a cloak of war. "So is your arrogance." The dreadnought pulled away, engines flaring as it broke orbit in shameful retreat. For a long moment, the valley remained still. Then the militia surged toward Elias, cheering, embracing, shouting his name. Mira rested a hand on the Gatling's frame. "It shouldn't have survived," she whispered. "No," Elias said. "But neither should we." He looked at the ancient machine, its barrels scorched, its gears blackened, its tripod half-bent. Yet it stood. A symbol of the day humanity defied an empire. "Let the galaxy remember this," Elias said softly. Behind him, the sun rose higher, casting long shadows over the wrecked Titan, the scattered dropships, and the battered but unbroken defenders of Hestia 12. History had returned, and it wasn't done yet. You said N?